Alright guys, this video is called the Tomb of Osiris. I'm sure by now we all know Osiris, the Egyptian deity, is always represented green. Now these colours are universal. Green means dead. When you see a blue entity, that means it's a spirit. And as I just said, that is universal, guys. Osiris, we see a dead man, and he has the beard. We see his arms together, sometimes crossed, but if not, holding the whip flail and the shepherd's crook, which form an X. And we see this two strands, threads, knotted, coming down. And what's also important, guys, with Osiris, he has the Artef crown, which is the two feathers of Mart on the side of the crown of the north, I believe. Here we can see an idol of Osiris with his hat, crown, and we can see the two feathers of Mart on either side, and coming down the crown of the north is the serpent to the forehead, where we would find the bindi spot or the crown chakra in other cultures. Osiris is the man between two pillars. We can see here Osiris is the man between these two pillars. It's interesting to note Osiris in this squatting man shape. Of course, Osiris is the middle pillar. Here we can see the X. There's lots of stuff, guys, to break down, but these videos aren't really about breaking down. We've covered, as have others, the Navalikori head with the serpent, and we've followed this through to the Sanchandwe artifacts and the ponytail, and we've covered, as others have, how this is where the symbolic ponytail comes from. Jet Li, we can see here, Sanchandwe, Navalikori. This is the serpent that comes down the crown of the north on Osiris, or the pharaoh who believes he is Osiris reborn. Of course, the Navalikori head, the serpent is on the back of the head, not the front, and we can see pharaohs have this ponytail that turns into a cobra hood. This is King Tut, his burial mask, his death mask. We see the cobra behind his head coming up. It's the Navalikori serpent. We find Osiris in Guatemala, as we've seen before, guys, complete with the hook and flail, the beard, and this serpent is an actual face on the crown of the Guatemalan Osiris. We can find this dude all over South America, with the head in his helmet, the best Phoenician feathered crown, and always the beard, guys. In Egypt, Osiris can be seen here in the squatting fetal position with his beard. He's shown here with a duck on his head. Now what they do, these Egyptologists and historians, and what the ancients did, they broke down every different representation into another god. So when we see Osiris with a duck on his head, they don't work out what this symbol means. They call this another god, and they call this god Geb. Here we can see Geb with his Waz scepter, his Ankh. He has the tail, which I believe represents the tail of Hanuman, the first men, the human men, the Benai Elohim, the sons of the Elohim. And he has this duck on his forehead, on his head, sorry. Now it's interesting to note these two central pillars at Göbekli Tepe, which I believe that the entire community now across the board, from Bible reading truth seekers to alumni archaeologists, acknowledge that these two central pillars are representative of entities. The T, the pillar, the temple, because you are the temple, and these two T pillars are representative of entities, and we can see not only does this entity have the two staffs, the twin staff rod god, and all the stuff before, we can see at the bottom, we can see ducks. Just like we see on Geb and Osiris. Here we can see 5 ducks, and it's not quite excavated, but I've recently, since I compiled this, just yesterday in fact, discovered pictures of this fully excavated, and there are 7 ducks. Okay guys, so here we have Osiris, the duck, which they call Geb, which we find 7 of these ducks at the foot of the central pillars of Göbekli Tepe. Just like the ducks that we've followed now from the Vinch culture right through to China. And we've talked about the spirals and the circumpunct, so we're not getting into this, guys. We're just going to tie all this together quickly, well, as quick as we can, briefly. Here we can see Akhenaten offering a duck. So this duck, it's getting clear, guys, that this duck is very important. And it is linked to Osiris. Osiris is written by the eye symbol, this squatting man, and a throne. This is how you write Osiris, Wasir, in hieroglyphs. And in this panel, we can see Osiris, Wasir, in this bowl. I personally believe, on a side note, guys, when we see this bowl, it means that what's going on is some spell or magic. So we see Osiris in some magic ritual where a vessel is being poured out between what I believe symbolically is a guillotine and the orb with the X marks the spot linked to Osiris. There's 3 layers to everything, and I will try and explain the 3 layers of this symbol now in this video. It is a guillotine. It is the 2 mountains, the horizon, and the 3rd layer, I believe, is a woman's knees when giving birth, and the baby comes out here. The tomb of Osiris that Zioas famously claimed underneath the Giza Causeway between the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's very interesting in itself. It has 3 layers. 3 layers, okay guys? The bottom layer, where Osiris is said to have been buried, we find the sarcophagus. He's buried on an island, symbolically surrounded by water, with these 4 columns. Now these 4 columns are very important. We've seen these at the Queen's funeral. At the Queen's funeral, she was placed at the bottom of the steps on the checkered floor of the coffin between the 4 pillars of light. Just excuse me, guys, because my dog's so pesky. And these animals, they seem to want to interrupt every video. Right, we're not having this all day. Is this the tomb of Osiris beneath the Giza Causeway? And if not, then where is the tomb of Osiris? I believe, guys, that this is the tomb the real tomb of Osiris. And it's where these legends come from. This is the tomb of Osiris at Karahan, where the squatting fetal burial position man was buried in the hole in the ground, just like we've covered in the Karahan video. This is one of those artifacts where I am so overloaded and I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life, guys. I can't recall whether this is South American or if this is actually from the Tepe Sanliurfa in the Sanliurfa Museum. I can't remember. But it's interesting to know the squatting fetal position, because that is the birth, like you're in the womb and then buried in this position, because it's symbolic of the death and rebirth. And he's got this human baby-like thing on his back. Osiris, the squatter man, is the man who was buried at Karahan, the squatting man from Karahan. And this enclosure AA, I believe it is called, I'm convinced now more than ever that this is the real tomb of Osiris and the roots where all the myths and legends stem from. Once in this tomb, Osiris is in his secret place, the underworld. We find this across cultures, guys. Here we find Enki in his secret place, Osiris, Tlaloc in his secret place. Here we see, I forgot this guy's name, in his secret place. And this is what is meant when we see Shiva or Vishnu in the sleeping position. I've seen Hindus and stuff talking about this. What does the sleeping position mean? Well, when the first man, the first host, this whole thing, I don't know how to put all this into words, guys, but when he's dead and put in this hole, he is in the underworld in his secret place, resting until it's time to be reborn. And here we see again the 16th, 17th century stuff. It's never gone away, guys. And look who this guy is in his secret place. And the X on his throne. Just like these guys' thrones. Just like Osiris's throne. You remember the turtle helmet idol from Karahan? And the turtle man, the turtle-headed man from Egypt. Well, this turtle-headed man is in the squatting position again. There's connections, everything is connected, and it all comes from here, guys. The enclosure AA, where the tomb of Osiris is located, is the enclosure with the serpent Ouroboros that goes all the way around, and the dog. Now, the dog is where we get the legends of Anubis, because when Osiris is dead, he is dead as a dog. So they are not gods. This is one man, and Moses was correct. Osiris is one stage, the burial. Anubis is another stage. He's dead as a dog. He becomes Anu of the abyss. This is all the same stuff. Anubis and Osiris are not gods. They're not even two separate entities. You remember in the Karahan guys video, I showed you about how this Ouroboros, the buried man, and the Ouroboros is the root of the Ouroboros symbol with the boy in the middle, which can be changed for a cross or a bird. And I showed you how, just like I've just said, it crossed birds, crosses, men. It's all the same stuff. The spirit entity of the Wasir, the man buried in the tomb of Osiris, who is dead as a dog, who re-Ouroboroses into the next host. That is the meaning of this symbol, and this is the root. It is what we find on the Garter jewel of the Order of the Garter. The X is the replacement for the squatting man, as we've just explained. We can have a man, we can have a bird, we can have the X marks the spot because things are interchangeable and Chinese whispers. This is the man from Karahan, and this is the Osiris Ouroboros that goes around enclosure AA on the Garter Jewel. And I broke more of this down, guys. I've done it before. I will just note it's important for this to notice this V cup, this crescent cup, which is like the uterus, the eggs of the woman, and the 3 fleur-de-lis, phoenix, whatever you want to call it, going into the chalice to make the orb. We'll talk about this more. We've seen the cattle hoyuk seal, stamp seal, with the 8-pointed star of Ishtar and the serpent eating its tail, guys, which is the Union Jack. So the Union Jack and the Garter Star can be connected right back to the Tomb of Osiris, the man from Karahan. Now, guys, I've just come across, since I made the Karahan Tepe video, this piece of Hongshan jade. Now, some of you might be aware that I'm really into this Hongshan jade, this red mountain culture, because it's a tipping point. And this shows that this Chinese Hongshan jade red mountain culture, this culture made artifacts that were memories of the tomb of Osiris, the man from Karahan. And here is the Ouroboros of the enclosure, and here is the squatting man, Osiris himself, that is buried within the hole in the ground in enclosure AA. I've shown you in the Karahan Tepe video, guys, this statue in the Sanliurfa Museum of the dog possessing or guiding behind the man. And I showed you this Hongshan jade red mountain culture piece in the Karahan Tepe video, but I was not familiar about the last piece I've just shown you. But now, guys, we have 2 for 2, Karahan and the red mountain culture jade. Okay, guys, this is the pinnacle, guys, and the cat's out of the bag. The cat is not going back in the bag. I told you how the Ouroboros serpent came out as the head in the next enclosure as the serpent, and I showed you that we can find this in the Chinese Yangtze Museum. This serpent, man, the worm that does not die, the soul, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, the worm that does not die. And here we have the Khufu hat, which is the crown of the south in Egypt, and these 2 tassel feathers coming off. These 2 are very important. We find this exact hat with these 2 feathers on the Chakmul, but we'll get to that later, guys. The worm that does not die. This is the soul, this is the spirit, guys. The will-o'-the-wisp. This is what this is, okay? And it's what this means. And it's how the death and rebirth of a god in a new host continues. This is the worm that does not die. Over and over. It is a soul. That is what this symbol represents, guys. This, and this. This serpent comes out into what we call, or what they call, what we all call, the phallic enclosure. What they tell too many lies, called the semen sperm head, along with its tail. And phalluses, penises, ejaculate semen, the beast of the sea, the semen. Once in the underworld, Osiris, the dead dog Anubis, the serpent, the worm that does not die becomes Khnum. So Khnum enters through the door in the underworld. He pays the boatman to start traversing the underworld, just like Enki. Here we can see Khnum with the horns and the Arten sat on the throne of Osiris, and here we can see the ram, the goat, behind the pharaoh guiding him, just like all the other stuff we see, like the dogman at Karahan Tepe, the Olmec heads, like drawn on the Egyptian depictions. It is the entity controlling through the pineal, the ram controlling the pharaoh through his pineal, just like on Game of Thrones. This is the meaning of the man being in the hat of Osiris in Guatemala, because this face, just like Osiris's serpent on Osiris, it's the worm that does not die. This is the entity in his head, reborn within him. Of course, Khnum is a more recent name for this entity. Benebjet, the Baphomet, is who this guy is. We can see the horns, just like the Baphomet. We can see the Artef. The Artef is the two feathers of March with the insert, which is the fleur-de-lis, which Baphomet has. And Baphomet is a moon, or moon. And just like we see the Osiris ribbons, the streams with the knot, this is what Baphomet has. And now we can clearly 100% guarantee that this is the Caduceus. The Caduceus, the DNA, the two lines. So Geb, Osiris, Anubis, Khnum, it's all the same guy. This is one entity, and already we have 4 gods. They are not gods. Once in the underworld, Khnum, or any of these entities, travel what they call the halls of Amenti. I believe the halls of Amenti are represented best in the Interstellar movie when he's in the Tesseract. The Tesseract, guys, I believe is the halls of Amenti, and the pillars and the columns. Some company had an architect design a workspace based off the halls of Amenti and the Tesseract, and this is what they came up with, guys. This is what the theatre is. This is all the world's a stage projecting the second layer, the underworld. This is Amenti, guys. The pillars, the columns. This is where that we get the columns, the idea. This is Konark. This is something rebuilt Greek in New York. Knossos. Interestingly, in these columns at Knossos, we see a bull and a tree. The Egyptian temples, all the columns, guys. At Chichen Itza, we find columns. We find what once was a temple, a room, an enclosure with columns. I'll just go back, guys. If you notice, these are penile phallic shaped columns. I just want to include, because it's part of a video I'm trying to make, Wentworth House. All these homes, these stately homes, are all built the same. But at Wentworth House, we enter in the door and we go down some steps and to enter the main building, to travel through this hall of pillars, of columns, and at the end is the light. This is the halls of Amenti, and this is the phallic enclosure, the underworld, the tomb of Osiris, and the halls of Amenti, and it all stems from Karahan. And this man between the two pillars, these columns in the Freemason 2 pillars, the man, the G-man. Can you see, guys? This is blowing my mind. But if this is all true, this means the mysteries truly are being revealed, and it is time, guys. We notice here that I have not noticed before until making this video. On top of these columns were carved two animals. You can remember in the Karahan Tepe video I showed you the dog on the pillars. Between the two pillars is the man, and how Hugh and everybody else, they all know this guy. There is no way, guys, that a guy like me, who is worthless, a failure, who can't even practice what he preaches, can understand this stuff. And these guys not. But this dog on this pillar we find from Utah to the Seals, all the way to Karahan, to Göbekli Tepe, sorry, we find on the pillars at Karahan in the phallic enclosure, which I believe is the origins of the legends of the halls of Amenti, and it is all symbolic of the real underworld. I've shown this image of this dog and this man with his turtle helmet on this seal in the Karahan video. But I've been looking at another place, guys, called Suka. It's in Java, it's in Indonesia, and we see on the side of this place, we see this demon-looking man eating a human, and he has his dog in tow. And at the side of him is this device, which we see to be some sort of column pillar with a head and this thing coming down into it with the bird on top. And yeah, guys, you've already got it, some of you, haven't you? This is the Sangshandwe artifact, because this Sangshandwe artifact is the whole thing. The Karahan Tepe site, the lore, the true story that this is based on, the death and rebirth of a god. We find the Sangshandwe artifact represented at Suka, where we find this man with his dog. There's loads of seals with the man and his dog, and other things like the cross, which is the mark. So the man and the dog with the mark. There's a lot of these seals, as I've just said. I've shown you Quetzalcoatl, Tlaloc, the spirit, the man, the yellow man possessed by the spirit, because blue is spirit, green is dead, blue is spirit. He is the bird serpent, the feathered serpent. He's possessed by the spirit of the dead dog, dead as a dog. The Wazir, Iwas, the man in the hole, the man from Karahan who became dead as a dog, who is Anu of the abyss, who is to be reborn in a host, the building of the Jed, which is enough to send Shiva up your Jed pillar. Amenti means lover, a male or female lover, one who loves another person, a sexual partner, especially with one whom is having an affair. This is not legitimate. I'm really sorry about that, guys. I'm going to have to take this call. I'll try and end this here, and I'll come back. The halls of Amenti, where two lovers come together to bury the sacrificed, beheaded victim. Once they've released his spirit by beheading him between the two pillars, they've released the spirit at Göbekli Tepe. They fetch him, the funeral procession, and they bury Wasir in the underworld, in the tomb of Osiris, where he becomes Anu of the abyss. He Ouroboroses the serpent, the worm that does not die, into the phallic enclosure, which is the semen, which was representative of the halls of Amenti, where the semen enters the egg. On the middle two pillars, we see the two people coming together, and what I believe was one stage, the penis in the vagina, the yoni, the orb, circumpunctured with the spirit, because as the only way to create a host. How do you make a man? Amenti, the halls of Amenti.